I've accumulated a box full of stuff I've been meaning to turn into dog toys and thought I'd walk you through what I made. I bought a bag of replacement dog squeakers and used them in almost all my toys. I also made sure to throw all the supplies in the washing machine before I got started. As a disclaimer, my dogs play with toys relatively mellow and don't really destroy often. I spent a little extra time and details knowing this, but you can honestly just add squeakers to anything and your pets will probably love it.
You're so sweet.
First up, I had a bunch of leftover buns from when I made the sausage link dog toy video. I will link the video here for you, but my channel is small, so here's an outtake of my process instead. I decided to try to make a jellyfish. The first thing I did was put a squeaker back into the bun. Next, I unraveled a rope toy from the dollar store and cut to a length I wanted for the tentacles. I sewed all the rope pieces together and tied them securely. Then I inserted this into the bun opening and sealed this shut, tacking in between the rope to make this more secure. Once this was done, I sewed opposite sides of the bun together, essentially tacking everything to the center to create the dome shape. I tacked on a little face with embroidery thread, then finished it up by braiding some of the rope. Kids, but especially baby stuffed animals, are great to turn into dog toys because most of them don't have any choking hazards. Regardless, whenever I upcycle an old stuffed animal into a dog toy, I always check for any plastic parts and anything other than stuffing on the inside. You want to make sure these are safe for your dogs to play with. I picked up this kid's toy from IKEA because it reminded me of my dog. All I did was open it up and add 2 squeakers to it, one in the head and one in the body. The next thing I wanted to upcycle were these socks that were gifted to me a few years ago. I don't wear them anymore, but the print was cute and I didn't want to waste them. You could probably throw a squeaker in there, add some stuffing, and tie the end into a knot and it would make a usable toy, but I went a little overboard with this one. I cut the socks with about a 1/2 inch seam allowance and sewed the 2 print sides together into a larger rectangle. I also cut a small circle out of the white part of the sock, which I used for the tutorial after this one. I sketched out a Pikachu based on an image I found online. I searched for an image with smaller ears since my piece of fabric to work with was pretty small. I eyeballed about a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the whole head and made sure that, including the seam allowance, the sock portion was large enough as well. I then traced all the supporting pattern pieces I'd need. I cut the Pikachu face out of the sock in yellow fleece, then cut the rest of the pattern pieces out of felt. After I laid out all the pattern pieces where I liked them, I tacked on all the face details with embroidery thread. I used a basting stitch to create a guideline where my seam allowance would be, then sewed the face to the sock piece with right sides together, leaving an opening on the top and bottom. I used the leftover rope I had from the jellyfish toy and inserted them through the opening I had left. Next, stuff the toy with fiberfill and add a squeaker. I also decided to cut up the rest of the sock, fleece, and felt scraps I had left to stuff on the inside as well. Once the toy is stuffed, I closed off the top and bottom, making sure to tack the rope throughout as well. I also braided the rope for this toy. Another thing that's great to turn into dog toys are plush keychains that you no longer use. This seal used to be on my keys, then my luggage, but I thought it was finally time to retire it. This has plastic pieces, so I wanted to show you how I make these dog friendly. After I opened up the toy and removed some of the stuffing, the first thing I did was remove the plastic from the plush, which was pretty easily done with some pliers. Here is where I used that small piece of sock fabric. Since the plastic pieces usually leave large holes, I used this as a backing to then embroider the eyes and nose. I added a squeaker and restuffed this to complete the toy.
You wanna play with that toy? I wanna play with the new toy.
Worth it. I also added a squeaker to this little Snapchat Ghost keychain I got at an event. I always make sure to cut off any tags and leaves before giving it to my dogs. There was a store in Hollywood that was closing where I picked up all these anime plush toys and keychains for a few bucks each. For the Dragon Balls, I added squeakers, and when I closed them, I tried to reshape them so they'd be more circular instead of ovals. For For the mushroom, this was actually pretty hard because it was very stuffed, so I removed some of the stuffing to make it softer and added a squeaker as well. For the Sailor Moon key, I opened the back and inserted a chew toy ring in the middle. I restuffed the center and closed this up. And for the Pokeball, I added a tennis ball inside. Also, another tip to easily unstitch toys. There's usually a wavy seam where the toy was finished and sewn shut. This is where I usually cut or seam rip because the seam easily pops open. Another great place to find cute dog toys or plushes to turn into them is Daiso. I found this cute whale toy and I couldn't help but make it into Laboon from One Piece. I started by destuffing but leaving some in the head for some structure. I then used some gray embroidery thread to randomly sew in his head scars. I created a pattern for Luffy's drawing of his Jolly Roger out of felt. Using a tissue paper to outline my smaller details, I embroidered the band-aids, face, straw hat, and details onto the white skull. Once my piece was complete, I stitched this over the scar. Again, I added a squeaker, restuffed, and resealed the toy to complete it. I know this was a lot for a dog toy, but I was happy with an anime-themed toy that probably cost me $2 to $3 to make. For some reason, my dogs are relatively gentle with their toys, so it was worth it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this gave you some ideas as to what you might have lying around that can be upcycled into dog toys. Please enjoy a montage of my dogs playing with theirs.